want to fend for myself, and I want to build people up for them to fend for. Hey everybody, take number 2022 of this intro. Woo! We are back with another episode of the Free Like Me podcast. Guests come in, speak their truth, and walk out of here free like me. If you would do me a favor so we can continue to grow, please subscribe to my YouTube channel, hit the like button, leave a comment, and share these if you find them interesting or helpful. There's all these analytics that make a podcast grow, and I need your help. So thank you for that. If you're interested in my coaching program or being a guest on the podcast, reach out to me either on social media sites, send me a private message, or through my website, freelike-me.com, and we'll set up a phone call and get it going. And also, my book, Scarred, which is coming out July 29th, is up on all sites that sell books, Barnes & Noble, Amazon, it's everywhere. So go get your pre-order. And this week, we have a great guest. He looks like someone raised in a perfect family because he's jacked and he's built and he's ripped. But he wouldn't be here if he was raised in a perfect family. So let's talk to Denny Giamazzo. Denny, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, brother.
You look jacked. Obviously, you're hitting the weights. And, appearances can be deceiving, though. You know, you're an ex-Army guy. And obviously work out, and you would just from looks, you'd be like, this guy, had a good upbringing, and he's rocking it in the Army and now in his career. But we can't just look at the cover and not see what's inside. And you never even knew who your father was, did you?
No, I've never met my father, and never known who he is, if he's alive, if he's dead.
Don't even know.
Nothing. But it's funny what you said about, hey, he looks a certain way, but you never would tell, what he's been through, type of a thing. And it's funny because when I recently started sharing my story about a year ago, I had so many friends that I worked with that, in the software space, and guys I was in the military with, like, that were just like, Denny, I had no idea. I never would have guessed, because a lot of the guys I worked with in the software space, I mean, they come from Ohio State, Michigan, Cornell, all these great schools, and, work in the software industry. You work with a lot of talented people.
Right.
With just those privileged upbringings. And so when they heard my story, they were just like, whoa, like I had no idea. So You're right. You definitely can't judge a book by its cover.
We'll get into it all, but your mom was addicted to heroin and ended up dying of AIDS.
Yeah. Yes. So my mom, she had me 2 months early, and the reason I was 2 months early was because of the drugs.
Drug use?
Yep.
Where were you born?
I was born in Worcester, Massachusetts.
Worcester guy, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah, I went to college at Northeastern.
Oh, did you?
In Boston.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Not too far
so I'm 35, 40 minutes down the pike.
Yeah. Absolutely. So take me in, to your childhood, bro.
Again, I was born about 2 months early. I spent the first 2 or 3 months in the ICU, NICU. With tubes in my chest to breathe. And, the doctors told my family, like, it's a miracle this kid's alive. But yeah, my mom had serious drug problems, addictions to heroin, cocaine, you name it. She was taking it. But it's important to note too, she had a very tough upbringing.
Well, I was going to say, do we know anything about her childhood? What was driving, whenever somebody is that far gone, there's something motivating.
Oh yeah. So
what she was running from.
So yeah. So my mom and, my aunt who later adopted me, and my uncle who physically abused me, like all three of them, they all had a very tough upbringing. And the only one that really came out on top of it is my aunt who adopted me. She's the only one out of them to graduate even high school. And, but yeah, my mom had a very tough time. My grandmother left, and my grandfather was, at the time, truck driver, gone all the time. And so my aunt, who was the oldest of the three siblings, was raising the other two. And it's tough. I mean, they didn't really have a fair shot at, normal upbringing or love or, kindness or anything like that. So yeah, she ran away. She ran away about, when she was about 17, I think 17 or 18, she took off, came to New York.
Oh.
And, she was here for a bit. I don't know how long exactly. I know she eventually came home in the summer of 82, and she found out she was pregnant with me. Didn't know who the father was, obviously, because her job was, selling herself. But she came home.
Oh, she was selling herself?
Oh yeah.
Oh, so
Yeah.
then it's going to be tough to really
Yeah.
find out who your dad was.
Yeah. And I've done all the DNA tests too, 23andMe, Ancestry, and nothing.
Nobody got arrested and is in the database.
So maybe there's something in there. I would actually, I'd beg that, I'd probably guess that there's a better likelihood that they're in there.
Oh yeah, the 23 doesn't go into that.
I wouldn't be shocked if, my dad was, that type of a guy, but
at least if you could find like a half sibling, and then you could put the pieces together.
The closest I've come is like a fifth cousin.
Okay.
And from that side of the family, doing the Ancestry and the 23andMe, and it's like, they don't know.
Does it drive you nuts?
No.
To not know who
as a
he
kid,
is?
it did.
Yeah.
As a kid, it was very hard. As of right now, it's kind of, I've done this. I've lived my life without him, and I've had so many positive male role models and guys that have had such a good influence on me that it's fine.
Right.
Yeah. And there's a part of me that is almost grateful that I don't know who he is, because my guess is it probably would have been a huge disappointment.
Right.
And I think about that sometimes, right? Is it better to not know who he is, or is it better to know who he is and he just is a piece of shit anyways, right? And then there's that strain there. So I struggle with that.
Yeah. At least I guess in this way you can sort of keep some fairy tale
alive
in your head,
exactly,
of who he is.
Exactly.
Yeah. But mom was stricken and addicted to heroin, and yet she still decided to have you and not abort you.
Yeah. So my understanding is she was considering that to have an abortion, and my grandfather talked her out of it.
Really?
So yeah. So I have my grandfather's first and middle name. She named me after him. She was grateful for that, and obviously I'm grateful for that.
Yeah. What's like your earliest recollections of growing up in the insanity?
So my last recollection with her is we lived in a small 1-bedroom apartment, and to do her job and sell herself, she left the apartment. She'd leave me there for days at a time, anywhere from 3, 4, 5 days. And she would just leave me there. I'd be alone in the apartment.
Not bringing guys back to the apartment?
Never.
Okay.
Not that I remember.
Right.
So she would leave me there, and I would stare out the picture window. There was a picture window that I could look out and kind of see the sidewalk to the main road. And then there were steps that came up into the apartment, into the first floor where we lived. And so I'd just sit and stare out that window for days, sitting on a chair. We didn't really have furniture or beds or any of that stuff.
Did you know what she was doing?
No. No, she would just disappear. And
you'd have to think, like, is she ever coming home after a day or two, right?
Yeah. I would just... She would always come home, so I would, like, think that she was going to come home, but I would just be like... It just didn't make any sense to me. I couldn't... Like, maybe... It's tough to think back at that age, right? Because it probably just became normal. But... Yeah, so I would eat what I could. Sometimes the lights were on and sometimes the lights were off. But yeah, it was tough. It was definitely scary, especially at night. I do remember being scared at night and cold at night. I can remember just being in my underwear, just only wearing like tight white underwear as a kid, just waiting for mom to come home. And eventually, like that's what got her, jammed up in the system. Is somebody told her. Somebody told on her. Told the state what was going on, and eventually they took me away and put me into foster care.
Do you remember what age foster care or social services got involved?
Yeah, I was 5.
5.
It was 5, 5.5, somewhere around there. I initially was sent to this one family. I don't really remember much about them. I remember the house being gorgeous and big, and they had a big in-ground pool. And I think I was there for just a short while, maybe a few weeks. I really don't know exactly. And then I got moved to another family, and they were awesome.
Yeah,
it was an incredible family. You hear the horror stories about kids that go to foster care, and something like more than half of them are either physically or sexually or mentally abused.
Right.
And I had as amazing of a foster mom as you could ever ask for. She was the first person in my entire life that I can remember that ever showed me any concept of what love looked like. She would cook awesome meals. She would take me shopping for clothes and toys and things that I liked. And Um, I remember our thing was sitting in this oversized recliner watching Nick at Night. We'd watch like I Love Lucy and Mork and Mindy and all those old school shows that would play, and we'd eat ice cream and we'd just sit together. And um, she was absolutely amazing, and she was in my life until she passed away about 7 years ago. Um, but she just always showed me all the love and just was so incredible. She was at my wedding. She was there when I got home from Afghanistan and celebrate that. And she was there when I graduated high school. So
Awesome.
just an awesome, even up until she passed away, we'd get together every so often, grab a beer. And she was in her 70s, but she loved to just grab a couple beers, and she was just always fit. And
What took her life?
so her favorite thing to do, and something we would do, is we'd sit by fire and just, this stone fire pit that we had, or she had. We'd sit there, hang out. One night she went out there and she had a heart attack by the fire. And that's how she passed away. But yeah, and yeah.
Well, at least she was in her favorite spot.
Yeah. That's one way, yeah.
Just try to
she's I gave the eulogy at her funeral. Yeah, her daughter asked me to do it, and yeah, just again, just amazing woman. Awesome.
Wow. Sorry about that. That's a bummer.
Yeah, I mean, things happen.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm built for this by now. You know what I mean? Just
we take so many punches, but we're never like it. It's just like, man, again,
absolutely.
Again.
And it's easy to think that way. It's just you become almost like conditioned to and numb to whatever the pain is that's coming. It's like physical pain, emotional pain, whatever it is. It's like when it comes for me, it's all right. I guess it's time to deal with it again.
Yeah.
And I don't ever feel bad for myself. I don't ever try to, but I do. There have been times, especially that time, because I had lost my grandfather 6 months prior. So there was this 6-month period where I was just like, damn, man, can you pile any more on?
Yeah. Enough's enough for right now.
But again, man, it's there's something I say all the time, and it's, there's always somebody who's been through more, come back stronger, and is doing more with less. And that's just my mentality. And I've always felt that way. Even as a kid, I was just like, I guess this is hard, but somebody has to have it worse.
The part of New Jersey I came from, it's real rural, and it's, just hard partying, hard workers, like blue collar working jobs, and everybody's a big drinker. And just like, I've lost so many people over the years. Like, it's just an insane amount, and a bunch of suicides, and just early deaths. And you don't get numb to it, but you're just like, like somebody loses somebody close to them and they're completely destroyed. And then it's just like when you lose like 10 people close to you, it's just like again and again and again and again. And again.
Yeah. Again, man, that just, I just do my very best to just be grateful for what I do have. And
yeah, I mean, just
it's tough
think
sometimes.
how blessed you were, like, to not get into a family where they were sexually abusing you. Like, you got blessed with this angel, like, given to you.
Yeah.
And to show you that what love can be.
And I got blessed twice because my aunt adopted me when I was 7 or 8. And so, she pulled me out of foster care, and, her and my foster mom got along very well. Which is why we maintained the relationship for my entire life.
So you were only with that lady for a year and a half, 2 years?
About 2 years.
And,
2.5,
and then
2
yet
years.
she kept in touch throughout the whole rest of your life?
Yeah, I mean,
That's pretty incredible.
We would do visits. I'd go stay there. I'd go camping with them. I mean, we never broke ties. I mean, if we did, it was like just because life got in the way a little bit, but we always kind of circled back, and it was never, it was just always there, that relationship and that bond between me and my foster mom. But yeah, again, I was very lucky. I had 2 angels. My aunt adopted me, and
did you ever go back with your mother after that?
No.
After they took you out?
No,
that was it.
No. So even at this time when my aunt adopted me, my mom's still alive, but she was
at 7. She's still alive.
Yes,
right.
She's still alive, and she has AIDS. So we know that it's only a matter of time before she's gone. But my aunt took me in and was like, all right, this is my sister's son, so I'm going to raise him. Um, and my aunt's incredible, for her to do that and take on that responsibility and be another person to show me love and what that looks like. And, I'm grateful. Again, I had two angels
Yeah.
and two even though I didn't have a father, I had two incredible women in my life. So I'm blessed with that. And, uh, my cousin, who's my aunt's daughter, we obviously grew up together. We're the same exact age. We're only 5 weeks apart. But I've always called her my sister, and she's my best friend. She's my favorite person. I always say that. I always get emotional when I say it for some
Yeah.
reason. But we're very close, and she's just incredibly special as well. So really, three women, three angels, three women that I've had in my life that have just been just imperative and instrumental in who I've become.
Did you like ever see your mom at that early age? Can you recall using drugs, or would you
Oh yeah,
find needles around the apartment? Or
I can recall one party where she kind of took me to. I don't know if it was a party or just a gathering with her friends or whatever, but this particular time that I went with her, she kind of set me aside in this kitchen. There was like a galley kitchen, so a long, narrow kitchen that was secluded from the rest of the apartment. Then there was the dining room, and then off everywhere else was bedrooms and a living room. And she sat me in this galley kitchen and just said, "Stay here, don't move." And she sat me down in a stool and said, "Read those magazines on the counter there." And the magazines were a stack of pornography. And so I sat there for about an hour, looked at that, thought it was pretty cool. I was looking at porn at 5 years old and thinking, all right, got bored, went and kind of wandered into the other area where her and her friends were hanging out. And that's the one time I can recall where I saw a lot of drug paraphernalia, spoons, tinfoil, white powder stuff on the table, right? And one of her friends gave me a sip of his drink. This big black dude gave me a sip of his drink that I thought was orange juice, and it tasted terrible. My mom saw that and got very upset, which is funny, right? You think about it. She had the presence of mind to try to hide me from it, but then as soon as I'm exposed to it, she was just like losing it, right?
freaked out? Yeah.
Yeah, so there was a big fight. I remember that just being a fight there and me being afraid of just seeing violence like that. But yeah,
Could you
that's
even comprehend at 7 what AIDS was? Did you even like know?
no. I just remember asking my aunt about it. I remember her telling me. I remember the moment when she told me, your mom has AIDS. She's, and I remember asking, "What's that?" And she just said it was a disease that there's no cure for, so eventually she'll die.
And
And
this is back in the 80s?
90, no, yeah, this had to be late 80s.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
this
when it
had to be
was
late
like
80s.
exploding,
Yep.
and it was like
Yeah,
the
this had
big.
to have been 89, 88, 88, 89.
Yeah.
But yeah, I remember her explaining to me just that it was a virus that there was no cure for and people died from it.
Right.
And yeah, that's eventually how she died.
Wow.
She lived until I was about 10.
10.
Yeah. She died a few months, I think, after my 10th birthday. So
Did she ever come by her sisters to see you after that? Like
I
after
would
she
see
took
her.
control of you?
Yeah, I would see her holidays, Easter, Christmas, Thanksgiving, things like that. But once I was out of her care, I never, it's gonna sound bad, maybe, I don't know, but it's like I loved her, but I didn't really care if I saw her. She didn't really mean anything to me.
Yeah.
Um, I think I just had anger.
Withering away and just
I,
self-absorbed with drugs and
yeah, I mean, I was there when she passed.
oh, you were.
Yeah, I mean, seeing somebody die that way is taking their breaths. Those last breaths are tough. That's tough to see. I think that's when it hit me, like, oh man, like people do die.
The thing with addicts, whether it's alcohol or any other drug, is the drug takes the forefront in their life.
Yeah.
And like, did you think like, I mean, it's probably a natural reaction to think like, oh, my mom chose drugs over me. But really, like when you're addicted, it's just all encompassing. That's all you can think of.
Yeah, I absolutely thought that. I probably thought that into my 30s. She chose drugs. That was more important to her than me. And fuck her. I mean, I usually don't swear on these things. I try not to anyways. But yeah, no, I was just like not happy with her. I had a lot of anger up until probably a few years ago. I was just so angry at her, and my aunt would not get mad at me, but I think she'd be sad at the way I would kind of speak about her, just saying like, I don't care, like she wasn't my mother, you were my mother. Um, and that's just how I feel. Um, but I've learned to forgive her
Okay.
and to accept the fact that, she really had it tough.
Yeah.
And, just because I feel like I had it tough and I was able to do good things with my life doesn't mean that everybody's built that way. And I have a lot better of more of an understanding and a better understanding of, what it means to an addict to be addicted. And um it was hard for me to even, yeah, I still even struggle a little bit to accept that. But I mean, that's just the reality of it. She did have an issue with drugs, and that really did dig its heels into her. And um, she, and it's not like it was all bad. There were some funny moments. I remember her smiling, and my aunt tells me how and she was beautiful, and she was like the life of the party and just a fun person. So, uh, yeah, I want to give her some grace,
Yeah.
'cause, everybody deserves it.
Yeah, I mean, we don't know what was driving her to,
Yeah.
yeah, like being raised by her sister's one thing. Maybe there was a lot more to it, abuse, rape, who knows what.
Right.
Um, it's just sad. It's unfortunate. It's just it's a life lost.
Yeah, man.
So how do you not follow in similar footsteps? Like,
Yeah.
I mean, you got blessed with the one lady, and then blessed with your aunt. How were you like in school as a student in high school and stuff? Were you doing drugs? Were you partying? Were you a good athlete? Good in grades? What were you doing?
School to me was always boring. I never felt like it was hard, but I always felt like doing this work is a waste of time. Like I don't give a shit about the atoms and the all the science and all that stuff. Um, I took an interest in history and writing. I was always pretty good at like English type stuff and social sciences like psychology and um, but yeah, no, I always hated math. I hated science. I was so bored with it. And so my grades were always, I was like a C, B student, nothing fancy, some A's here and there. Did just enough to stay eligible for sports. I played basketball and football. Um, yeah, and played AAU basketball. I loved, that was kind of my sport growing up. And but before that, as a kid, until I was about 13, I was a very good baseball player. Literally like all stars and all that stuff. But yeah, no, I always played sports. And
Not getting in any serious trouble.
I got into one thing in high school, but for the most part, I always kind of kept to myself. I was a pretty angry kid.
Yeah.
Um, quiet, like just kind of like sitting back, did a lot of listening as opposed to a lot of talking. Um, but yeah, no, I got arrested once in high school. Um, we were. This is a funny story, kind of. So we were in high school, and it was, I think, our girls' soccer teams were playing our rival high school. And so all the guys from the other school were at our field, and we were there, and we were all just kind of talking back and forth to one another. And we all knew each other. Um, and we had this area I grew up in a small town, Thompson, Connecticut, 6,000 people at the time. So we were just a bunch of country kids. We partied in cornfields. We partied on ice, on the ponds in the winter. We drove our trucks on the ice, and we were just hicks.
Yeah, yeah.
And so after this soccer game, we went to this place called Auger Pond. It was where we did our partying at night. And so we had like a whole setup there, couches, chairs, a fire pit, all that stuff. It was kind of cool. We set it up ourselves. So we went there after the soccer game. It was like October, early October. And we get there and the place is trashed. And it was those kids from the soccer game. We knew it was them. And so, bright idea we have. Let's load up 2 cars and let's go chase these. Let's go find these kids. We're going to go into their town of Putnam. And we're going to go find them. It was amazing to me how easy it was to find them. We found them. They were still in our town driving because we knew their cars. They were still in our town driving, and we found them, caught them, and then they recognized it was us. We chased them. So we chased them into their town. They pull into this random driveway. and then they lock all the doors in their car. They won't get out. So me and my friends decide that it'd be a good idea to punch the windows out of the car and pull them out. So we did that. Punched the window out, pulled them out, beat them up, and hurt them. And luckily, I was 17, not 18, because assault and battery, destruction of property, all these charges would have been jail time. And if I'm being honest, we fought like a bunch of cowards. There was 5, 6 of us, and there was 2 of them. And what's crazy about that is I actually know those guys now, friends with them.
Yeah.
Friends with them. Well, we laugh about it, we joke about it, and thankfully we can do that because, you know, we were just a bunch of punk kids, just very poor decision. We thought we were tough, had something to prove, right? But that's the one time I really got into trouble as a kid. It was, yeah, that was, and like I said, I'm lucky that I was under 18 when that happened, and, you know, all I got was, I think I got a little probation and some mandatory anger management counseling, but
I grew up the same way. Like, you know, I went to Kinnatini, and our big rivalry was Newton, and like, you know, just getting in fights.
Yeah.
With this guy Joe Veg and Gary Massey, and then just best friends with him. You know, it's just like, and Gary moved away. Joe just died, unfortunately, last year. But Joe and I became like just the closest of friends. You know.
Yeah, well, it was interesting because that happened in October, and I didn't get arrested for it until like December. And so basketball season had started, and at that point, I was a sophomore in high school, starting varsity as starting point guard on the varsity team, and so when that all happened, there was a big article about it. So then, like, you know, 3 starters on the basketball team were involved in that fight. We all got benched for a game, maybe 2, I forget. But no, I think it was just 1 game, but we all got benched for a game. So they're writing about it in the papers. Everybody in such a small town, tri-town area, and everybody knows everybody. It was embarrassing, really, to act that way and to get caught acting that way. But again, the funniest thing was that we became friends, and our towns, the kids hated each other. And I ended up playing AAU basketball with half of their basketball team and becoming great friends with them and best friends with one of them. And he was the best man at my wedding.
Oh, awesome.
And I was the best man at his wedding.
Oh, that's cool.
So it's just funny how those little childhood or, you know, feuds and all that, like you said, happen. And then you become friends with these guys. And but they're all awesome. It was just such a stupid mistake as a kid.
Yeah. So after high school, when do you finally join the Army? How long after you graduate?
Right after high school, I went to college. I went to Central Connecticut.
Okay.
Did 3 years there. And after my 3rd year, I kind of ran out of money. Couldn't get more student loans. Couldn't afford to go back. So I decided I was going to take a year off. My college job the entire time was I was working at Home Depot. So I figured I'd work full time at Home Depot, take a year off from college, then go back. And during that year off, I had an Army recruiter from the Massachusetts Army National Guard, walk up to the paint counter where I was working. He needed paint. So I started asking questions, and he asked if I was in school and stuff like that. And I basically told him the situation. And he mentioned that, you know, they were paying off $20,000 in student loans of existing loans that you have. And also they'll pay for you to finish. And they'll give you a $20,000 signing bonus. So I heard all those numbers, and it was like, you know what? I've always thought about the military. I've always wondered about it. But once I heard the numbers, it was like, yeah, all right, I'll do it. And they did. They paid off $20,000 in student loans, and I had 40 at the time. I paid the rest off. But yeah, it was. I joined about 23. I was 23 when I joined the Army, National Guard in Massachusetts, and yeah, this is an interesting story too. In 2006 is when I left for basic training. I left in August sometime. Graduated. I was scheduled to graduate basic training on December 19th, right before Christmas. And then I'd go home, be at my unit. And as I was finishing up my training cycle for infantry school in November, I remember one of the guys that was in basic training with me was going to be in my unit. And he had heard that my unit was going to Iraq in March, that upcoming March in 07. Where they were going to start to mobilize in March of 07. And I was pumped. I was like, I didn't think I'd be going this soon. Let's do it. And so December comes around. I just finished infantry school. I got my cross rifles pinned on me. Was super excited, and I get a call from my drill sergeant. He comes in the room and says, "Hey, you got to go down to dental." And I was like, "All right, for what?" And he said, "You have to get a wisdom tooth pulled out." So I said, "Okay." I asked him if I said, "Can I just do it at home?" And he said, "No, you're going now." So I said, "All right." Um, so I go to the dentist, and they pull my right side first. They said, "Come back Monday, we'll pull your left." And I said, "Okay." And they didn't give me any antibiotic to steer off the infection. They just gave me Tylenol with codeine, and it got infected. And the infection ended up spreading through my throat and just closing my airway. If you look over here, you can see a nice little gash, from like a nice scar from here. Then I had another tiny one under here and another one over here. So essentially what happened was they brought me into surgery, and I had a trach.
Yeah, they get a trach.
Yeah.
Wow.
So it was closing off my airway.
From a friggin' tooth getting pulled.
Exactly. So they pulled me into surgery right away. I woke up about 12 hours later or something like that. My parents were in the room. They called my parents, flew them down right away. They weren't sure if I was gonna make it. And I woke up and I had, a catheter. I had all drains coming out of me, IVs, and I had a hole in my throat with the trach. And then I had tubes coming out of my throat, draining the infection onto a hospital ground. It was
Wow.
disgusting. And then I had to go in for a second surgery, and I almost died twice during that second surgery, I guess, flatlined twice. And it was just wild. Just, something simple like that.
Yeah.
If an infection catches on and it starts to spread, it can do some damage, apparently. But that was tough because, again, I was excited for the Iraq deployment coming up in a few months, and they ended up going without me. I show up to my unit in late February, and my first sergeant noticed that there was a kind of a stain on my shirt, and it was because the dressing had moved underneath. There was still a hole that was open, and he noticed the stain on my shirt, and he says, "What's that?" And I said, "Yeah, that's from my trach." And he goes, "Is that fucking thing still open?" And I said, "Yeah, yes, sir, yes, First Sergeant." And he says, "You're not fucking going to Iraq." He goes, "You're not fucking going anywhere."
Right.
So I was pissed. I remember him looking at me and being like, "I can tell you're pissed." He goes, "I promise you'll get your shot. You'll go somewhere." He goes, "But not." He's like, "You're not going on this one." He goes, "If I send you," he goes, "they're gonna send you right back to me." And then
Not
I'm
with
gonna,
an open wound.
yeah. He goes,
Wow.
"They're not." He's like, "You're not gonna clear medical with that." So I missed the Iraq deployment, and I was upset, but at the same time, like, it is what it is. I try to just roll with the punches. And you just don't always get what you want. But I used my time wisely after that injury. That injury took, and he was right, because that was February. I don't think my throat fully healed up until about June. And then I don't think I was in shape again until about, because I lost a ton of weight. I was skin and bones, maybe 140 something pounds. And I don't think I got back into shape until September, October. So, I mean, we're talking a long recovery period just from getting that trach and, feeling strong again.
Good 9 months.
Yeah. It was a long time. Like I was on like a physical profile for that long, for the military. I couldn't even really do anything. Eventually healed up. And after that, I tried leaving the guard a few times to go active duty. I wanted to be a Marine, or excuse me, I wanted to be a Ranger. I wanted to be a Green Beret. I wanted to do all these things. And, but I found out we had a deployment to Afghanistan coming up. So I deployed to Afghanistan in 2010. I went to a ton of schools before that deployment, earned a lot of points, and got promoted ahead of my peers. And I went over there as a team leader. And yeah, it was an experience. It was an experience.
Like, take us into like some of the day-to-day crap over there. Like, what are you seeing? Like, what do you, and what do they got you doing?
We were part of what's called the Provincial Reconstruction Team. So essentially, we were in Ghazni province. So we were a team assigned to Ghazni province. And so basically, this team is made up of civil affairs experts, educational experts, agricultural experts, and their job is to go into the local villages within that province and assess the needs in those areas, right? Like, how can we help, essentially?
Are you welcome when you go into these villages?
Depends on the village. some places we went, I mean, we could take all our gear off, play with the kids, and throw them over our shoulder. I got a picture somewhere of me holding kid on my shoulders, and it'd be great. We had a lot of fun. But then there were other places we went where it was you could get shot at any point, you could get hit an IED at any point, and it just really depends. And we always had intel on each area before we went there on how dangerous it was, and what had taken place in that area that had been reported previously. We'd get all that intel prior to even going out. So we always had a good idea of, at least a rough idea of what we were walking into each time. But our job as infantry guys, we were security for that team. So essentially we'd go into the villages, make sure they were secure, set up perimeters and security and things of that nature. And then after they were done their engagements, we would secure their exfil. And that was kind of our mission. And yeah, like there was just some weird things over there, a different culture, right? I remember one of the villages we went into, we talked to this one guy, and we talked to him for a couple hours, or they talked to him, I should say. I was pulling security, but we went there and they engaged with this guy for a couple hours, and we left. And we went back there, I don't know, maybe a month later, a few weeks later. And when we got there, they were telling us to leave, like, get out of here. And then I found out from one of our CIA guys that because that other guy had talked to us previously, his whole family and himself, they got murdered.
Ugh.
So that was tough. Like, you think about that kind of shit, and but that's, like, you asked about day to day. I mean, we were just going into these villages trying to do assessments, or they were doing assessments. I was on security, just in charge of that element. Helping to be in charge of that element.
And who would murder that family? Taliban?
Yeah.
So either they have somebody there that told them, or they were, watching it.
Yeah, one of those that they can get their intel just as easy as we can. They have their moles, their rats, and it's wild over there. It really is the Wild West.
Are you seeing any of the poppy fields? In that area?
I didn't see any. I mean, okay. maybe I wasn't really looking for them.
Right.
For all I know, I was next to him all the time, or I wasn't
paying attention,
or I wasn't next to him at all. I honestly couldn't tell you. I mean, maybe some of my guys paid attention to that stuff and they could tell. They could. I don't even know. I really don't know. I'm sure.
Now, when you go into a village, is there like one guy who's like the elder and control of the village?
Typically,
the head guy. That's who your guys were talking to, and then his whole family gets wiped out.
Yeah, typically the goal is to engage with the elder because he has the most influence. On the decisions and the aid that we're basically allowed to give. Right. So yeah, that's typically who you'd want to engage with over there is the elder.
Are you just going in for that day? You're not, or are you spending the night in the village, or you just go in, go back to the base, go back the next day, back to the base?
We did a lot of both. We started our deployment just going out for a day, and then come home, and then a day and come home, and it turned into going out for 3 days. We'd go out for 3 days, home for 2 or 3, and then we kind of got into a rotation like that because our leadership just felt like, and they were right, they just felt like we could get a lot more accomplished because what we would do is over a 2-3 day period, we could hit 5-6 villages. And as opposed to, let's drive 3 hours out here, drive back, and then drive 3 hours in the same direction the next day, drive back. So yeah, we would stay. There were times we stayed in the villages with the people, and there were other times we stayed at the district centers with, the officials of the government officials of those particular districts. But yeah, we did a lot of staying out in the field, especially the last 6-7 months of the deployment. We did a lot of that.
You got to be on edge when you're out there, right?
Yeah, I mean, our CA guys were paying guys like, hey, here's however much money. Don't shoot at us tonight. Don't blow us up when we leave here. I mean,
that's how it works.
Yeah,
everybody's getting paid off.
You can buy anything you want over there, protection, whatever. And I know our CIA guys were doing that, and I appreciate it. Probably the most useful, best use case for our tax dollars that I can think of. Is
right, when everything they're uncovering, maybe that's where some of it went. Like,
yeah. And so, yeah, there was a lot of that, and sometimes when we go into a village, we'd get shot at on our exfil and have to kind of fight our way out. And sometimes we just we'd get in our trucks and leave. Sometimes we'd stay and fight a little bit and then leave. And it was just different every time.
Wow. Were you just deployed that one time?
Yeah, I did one deployment. And it was an awesome deployment, man. I couldn't ask for a better leadership team. Our commander and senior enlisted were both SEALs. They were in charge of the whole provincial reconstruction team. And because of their relationship, we had guys from SEAL Team 8 that became good friends of ours and would come out with us, and got to do a lot of cool stuff that typically you don't see guys from the National Guard doing. So I was just incredibly grateful for that. And our leadership as well. My platoon sergeant Mike, he's my best friend and co-host of my podcast. Absolute awesome leader. And then my platoon leader Mike Mondello too, just incredible. So I had 4 amazing leaders on that deployment who always had us set up for success and prepared for whatever. So it was awesome.
Now, you said when you signed up, they would pay for your last year of school.
Mm-hmm.
Did you get that while you were in, or is that after you get out? And did you ever get it?
Yeah. So after I got out in 2013 and went back to school.
Finished it off.
Yeah. By the time I transferred all my credits, I had basically lost like 2 years of college. So I really only had like 1 year or two. I had like a year and a half. And so I had about two and a half years left of curriculum of college left. And I banged that out in just under 2 years. I went to school full time, winters, summers. At one point I was taking 5 classes, working 6 days a week. But it was a goal I set for myself. I was like, this is why I joined. Like I wanted to get my degree and have them pay for it. So I became the first person in my family to graduate college.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Great. And you had mentioned, like, when you were having the trach and everything, your parents flew in. You mean your aunt and her husband?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I always talk about, I didn't have a dad and all that. And it's true. I didn't. But her husband's a great dude. He's always been there for anything I needed him to be there for. But, we talk about how my family all had a tough upbringing. His wasn't any easier. Right. His was tough. And he had some issues with alcohol and drugs at one point in his life. I mean, many years ago now. But just he was a good provider, but he didn't know how to be a dad, and that really wasn't his thing. And he would often say as a kid, because I was pretty vocal about saying, you're not my dad, just something punk kids say.
All right.
And he would say, you know what, you're right, I'm not, but I can be your friend. Uh-huh. And he would try, and it was kind of my fault that I didn't really allow him to. But incredible guy.
Are they both alive now?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Oh yeah. Awesome dude. Love him to death. Him and I have a good relationship now. Just wasn't a dad. He was a friend.
All right. What do we do after we graduate? Where does your life take you? You mentioned, I think at the start of this, you're in software sales.
Yeah.
What'd you major in? Were you studying that? No,
I majored in political science because originally my plan was I wanted to go to law school. But then I realized, going to law school is very expensive. They weren't going to pay for that. And just kind of just ended up in the software space about 3 months after I got my degree. I actually went back to school with the idea that I was going to go to Oracle. I had 2 friends working at Oracle, obviously a large software company. And I had asked them if they could get me a job. And because I knew they made a lot of money, they did well. And so I said, hey, do you think you could get me a job there? And they both said, no, because you don't have a degree. But we do like to hire veterans. If you get your degree, I can get you an interview and we can see what happens. So I actually went back to school. I was going to go back to school anyways, but I went back to the school kind of chasing that dream of going to Oracle for 2 years. And that was kind of on my mind. If I'm going to get this interview after I get my degree, and if that doesn't work out, maybe I can go to law school. But I went to school for political science for that reason, because I just needed a degree in something. And so I ended up getting the interview at Oracle, and I don't think I did particularly well in the interview, if I'm being honest with you, but I did have a friend who was a senior director at the company, and I think he kind of pushed me through. And I'm obviously very grateful for that. I don't know if he did that, honestly. We've never talked about it or anything. He's never said, oh, guess what, you got it because of me or anything like that.
Right.
I just think that. Because I don't think I did particularly well in that interview, but who knows? Either way, I got hired. And I spent about 6.5 years at Oracle. Did well. Made President's Club twice, which means
What's that mean?
It means you're a top performer in the sales organization. You're talking a company of 100,000+ people, and that was pretty cool to make that twice and be recognized as a top performer at a big company like that. But yeah, that's kind of where I built my software career, and I've been doing it ever since. I've been doing it for about 9 years now.
Where does that take you after those 6 years?
I went to a company called Workday, which is another large software company, and yeah, just
Is that where you're at now?
no. So right now I'm actually in between jobs where I'm interviewing for this company called Sharp Performance, and this is actually a really cool opportunity. I'll find out this week if I actually get it. But they created an app for police, fire, law enforcement, EMS, all first responder, that community. And basically, the app is a resource where the firefighter, the police officer, whatever, they can go on there, schedule counseling one-on-one for PTSD, and maybe they're having trouble on the job. There's fitness stuff on there, breathing techniques. So essentially, this app is designed to service those communities. And the really cool part about this is that the entire company is made up of former military special operations. So SEALs, Green Berets, all these things. I'll be their first non-special operations hire if I get the job. So I'm pretty excited about it.
All guys that know PTSD.
Exactly. Well, and that's the thing. That's why I was able. They really liked my resume, was the sales background, and I do have a combat background in the Army, and PTSD is a thing for me. So they really liked my background, being able to speak to that audience. But yeah, I'll find out this week how that goes.
All right. I'll be in touch at the end of the week.
Yeah.
We'll see.
Yeah, we'll see.
You say, you've had to get rid of your anger. Did you ever do therapy over the years?
I did. I've done a lot of therapy.
A lot of therapy?
Especially, yeah. So I started, I was forced to go to therapy as a kid. When social services took me from my mother and all that.
That's part of it?
Yeah.
Okay.
It was part of it. I had to go meet with somebody, and I would just sit there and say nothing. I would just sit there and just be like, when is this going to be over?
Right.
I don't think I ever started really putting the effort into therapy until about 5 years ago. Actually, no, prior to that, actually, I put a lot of effort into it when my ex-wife forced me to go to counseling for my PTSD. Because I came home very different from Afghanistan in terms of I had a really bad drinking problem. I drank for months, several months.
When did you get married? How soon after your deployment, or
A year.
1 year later?
About a year after I got home, almost exactly.
So you were still in college, finishing those 2 years?
Yeah, I was married when I finished my college. Yeah, I was married when I was finishing school. And
then drinking started rearing its ugly head?
Yeah. Yeah, it was just, and it wasn't even like, I never had this like physical addiction to alcohol, like I have to drink, or it was just, how can I numb myself today? And that was what I did every day for several months. And to the point where, my wife would just think ex-wife, she would just think I was having a drink, at the end of the day or something. But really, I've been drinking all day while she was at work and doing shots and sneaking around with alcohol. And
were you numbing your childhood? Were you numbing your time in the military? Were you numbing something else? I mean, have you...
Name it.
Yeah, everything, right?
Everything.
Yeah.
With me, it's always been once one thing starts to get to me, it all just compounds and it all starts to get to me. And, when I finally started going to counseling for PTSD from the military stuff, I started to unpack the childhood stuff. And it's crazy because so much of that was suppressed and pushed down that, like, shit, I didn't even remember. And it's crazy. I can remember my sister telling my ex-wife about how I was physically abused by my mom, with her putting cigarettes out on me and her holding my hand on the stove. And I remember my aunt asking me about it, or excuse me, my ex-wife asking me about it. Like, did this really happen? And I said, I don't remember that. And like a light switch went off. 30 seconds later, I was like, shit, I do remember that. Like, I remember it like it was yesterday now. And it's just funny how you suppress those things and you push them away so bad, and then they kick you in the ass later.
Right.
Whether it's childhood trauma or the military stuff, there is no getting rid of it ever. I mean, you can get treatment for it. You can find ways to cope and deal and, again, coping mechanisms to address it. But, people ask me like, how'd you get over it? Never going to get over it. Never going to get over it. Any of those things, I'll never get over any of them.
What's helped you get functional with your demons, that we all got these scars on our soul, and you just have to find a way to live with them. They're not going away, so what's helped you like to grow over the years and mature and get healthy? And
I think the biggest thing for me has been therapy. I think talking has helped. I think it's helped me to gather an understanding as to, a lot of the why. Why would my uncle want to beat the shit out of me when I was 13 years old? I was, because he had his own demons. Why was my grandfather such a raging alcoholic? He had his own demons. And they projected out onto me and other people. But talking has been huge, and gathering an understanding of why people act the way they do has been huge. And
so even these males that were positive, and like, you were named after your grandfather, you said, right? And yeah, he was a raging alcoholic. Mm-hmm. And then you have a good relationship with your aunt's husband, but he was physically abusive for a while.
No.
Oh, this is a different uncle?
No, my aunt's brother.
Oh, my aunt's brother.
Yes.
Okay.
No. Yeah. Her husband's incredible. My uncle was the one that was physically abusive. And my grandfather, I forgot to do this on Soft One Underbelly. I was kind of upset about it. But he ended up being amazing. After he quit drinking, like the last 17 years or so of his life, he quit drinking, and he was amazing. Such a different person without the alcohol. And
what got him sober?
A DUI.
Yeah? And that woke him up?
Yeah, he got a DUI, I think, when I was 18 or 19. And I remember my parents couldn't drive him to court, so I drove him. And I was sitting there in the courtroom listening to the prosecutor read the police report. And so the police officer walks up to the car and says, "Hey, do you know why I pulled you over?" And my grandfather goes, "Don't bullshit a bullshitter. You got me." They read that. They read that in court, and I remember sitting in the back laughing. But that always to me just sounded like a formal surrender. Like, I got to change. Right. And on top of that, he got cancer several times, beat it, open heart surgeries. He's probably the strongest dude I've ever met. A man's man.
I mean, we can have these flaws, but do we allow those flaws to just drag us to the grave, or can we overcome them and rise above them? And he did. And
he did. I wish he had done it sooner, because he was probably in his late 60s when he finally got it together. But he did get it together, and he became an awesome grandfather, good great-grandfather to my sister's kids. And him and I had a very close, special relationship by the time he passed. And, even though he drove me nuts as a kid and was harmful with his words sometimes, but I remember him as a great guy now. Just he made up for that, and you could tell through his actions, even though he never said it, because again, he was a very tough guy. He never said sorry or any of that, but you could tell through his actions that he knew what he did and he regretted it. He was a very smart guy.
So you got your flaws, and you're trying to rise above them. And, I'm sure it's not easy to come on and say, my mother was tricking and addicted to heroin and died of AIDS, and my father was probably one of her tricks, and I never knew him, and what's making you speak out like that? What's making you give where are you getting the strength to just be like, I'm not going to allow this to, secrets to destroy me?
Somewhere somebody's just looking for that. They're looking for the strength themselves to just be like, want to be able to share, to want to be able to help other people. And that's 100% what this is about. Touching as many people as possible and letting them know that they're not alone. Right. Because when when you go through certain things, there's certain hardships, you feel like you're on an island by yourself.
Absolutely.
But the truth is you're not. And I've said this, you and I are both good friends with Seth. And one of the things I've said is, your story, your pain, whatever it is, your adversity, it's not unique. there's somebody out there that's either gone through the same thing or is going through it right now. And it's almost like you have an obligation to share. It's almost, because that opens up a window for you to be a resource to them and be helpful. After going on Software Underbelly, I had hundreds of messages from people. And I still get them all the time, and I can't tell you how good that makes me feel when a complete stranger is able to open up to me about some hardships that they've had, and I'm able to kind of, give them some kind of an uplift and make them feel better about things. That really is what it's about, is helping as many people as possible. That's why. And if I'm being a little bit honest and selfish, it's therapeutic for me.
Oh, absolutely.
To share and to be around people like yourself who, might understand exactly what that looks like. So yeah, that's the why for me is it's about what can I give back, not what can I get.
If I don't speak about stuff and help other people speak about, those demons in there are like just waiting for the house to build a home in again, it's just like you gotta keep moving forward, or else if you get complacent, man.
Yeah. And your demons aren't unique either. We all have them.
Yeah.
I don't care who you are, right? You think about this. No matter who you are, male, female, whatever, something's bothering you. Something's chipping away at you every day, and it's chipping away at, your conscience, your ability to be better. And something inside of you is always trying to bring you down, in one aspect of life or another. And it's, we all have that. We're all fighting that devil on the shoulder every day. Do I skip this workout? Do I skip this meal? Do I, whatever? It could be as simple as that, or it could be as, guys who are addicted to porn or whatever. It can be a million different things, drugs. But everybody's fighting a different battle all day, every day.
Right.
And it's not unique. It's just how you react and how you respond needs to be.
So on top of doing, you mentioned Software Underbelly, which I've done also. And you also do public speaking. You started doing that.
Yeah. I started doing public speaking, engagement speaking back about 6-7 months ago, sharing my story. And my primary target audience has been CEOs and business owners, sharing my story and, kind of going through and walking them through the things that I did differently to get from, the pain to the purpose, right? The childhood upbringing, the PTSD, I talk about those things. But then I talk about the things that I needed to change in myself. I needed to change my attitude big time. I needed to change my level of discipline in all aspects.
How did you get discipline?
I think discipline just comes from having a really difficult conversation with yourself. What am I doing every day? What are my habits, every single day, and the things that I'm executing on to get better and to make sure that I'm on this path of self-improvement. So for me, that means, first and foremost, I try to be kind to every single person I come across. I want everybody that I interact with to think that I'm a nice guy. Even if that particular day, the last thing I want to do is be nice. It's just having a positive attitude and trying to, I naturally have a more hard exterior. So I try to work on that. Obviously working out is incredibly important to me, and getting in the gym is important to me. Fueling my body with certain things, food, supplements, that's incredibly important to me. Making sure that I'm writing every day, putting pen to paper, or typing for my book. I do that every day. And then I'm doing leadership stuff. I'm a subject matter expert in leadership with Nick Lavery. So I'm working on stuff like that every day. And I actually joined Nick's team as an engagement speaker as well recently. So I'm working on stuff for that. I'm actually I'm speaking to the team, the USA team, Team USA football organization in Indianapolis on March 1st. That's my next speaking engagement, and I'm super excited. But yeah, man, I have so much stuff going on that's really just fueling my soul and making me happy, and just giving me a lot of purpose. And one of the things I said on Software Underbelly is, it's a constant struggle for me to feel like I'm worthy of good things. And
yeah, I heard that part of you saying, it's tough for you to feel self-worth. And how are you doing with that now?
It's getting a lot better. and I got to give a couple people a lot of credit for that. My best friend Mike has just been an incredible friend. He's done a great job just reaffirming, the work that I'm doing, the work that we're doing together on the podcast, and just doing a great job kind of uplifting me and just being there. But then, Nick Lavery has been incredible. He's an awesome friend, brother, leader, and him seeing the value in what I can bring to him and a few of his different businesses has made me feel just a level of self-worthiness and value that I perhaps didn't even see myself. And so those two guys, and just taking action on the things that I want to do, and seeing success in those areas has helped me a lot. But I'm definitely coming around on that and starting to feel like, wait a second, like maybe I do add value, and maybe I am worthy of good things. And I'm starting to feel that. And it's been an awesome shift over the last year or so. I still have my days like everybody else where I'm like, just not feeling confident.
I guess our childhood trauma like instills that little negative voice in you that just tells you you're not worthy, because just waiting for the ball to drop always. I went to a hypnotist, and she's like, well, what do you want to work on? And I'm just like, that negative voice that, that tries to derail me, And so like every day, like, I got a mantra, I repeat: I'm ready to receive and willing to accept prosperity, opportunities, abundance, financial success. And I just keep telling myself that over and over, to just quiet that voice that says, oh, this isn't going to work out. That's not going to work out. We're not going to make this. We're not, and it's just like, you got to shut that voice up.
Yeah. And if you let it, that voice that'll hit you from every direction. It'll hit you personally, professionally, relationships. It's hit me in all of them.
Yeah.
Hard. So I'm just now, again, just over the last year, just gotten so much better incrementally at just feeling better about myself and my own capabilities and my own worthiness.
When did you end? When did your marriage end? How long ago was that?
That was about 3 years ago.
Okay. I'm sure that had to like instill something, in you too. Like
that was tough because, we all have failures. We all have things we consider as failures.
failure,
That was the biggest one. That was a really tough one for me to swallow, just because, I said on Soft One Underbelly, I kind of left, and, I didn't need to, but, mistakes were made, and, I got to the point where I just didn't feel worthy of it. I didn't feel worthy of a good relationship.
Healthy relationship.
Yeah. And I didn't, even though we'd been married for, 10, 12 years, I didn't feel like I was worthy of it. It was like, it was this weird feeling of, at some point she's going to, see right through me, right? She's going to see that, I have all this baggage.
Right.
And she knew
she knew your baggage, right?
But in my head, it's like,
that voice.
I had done a good job of masking it, right? Or at least I thought I had. But so I would get in my head about, when she really knows me, when she really finds out, she knew everything. But I needed to talk it. I needed to kind of self-destruct and get some chaos back in my life, because that's what my childhood was. And that's what, Afghanistan was at times. And man, it's when you're used to that chaos and it becomes like you become dependent on it, and it's tough to function without it. And so, I know how I can get some chaos back. Let me fuck my marriage up.
Right.
Yeah, no,
it's 1,000%, man.
And so it's awful because of what it does to somebody else. Right. So it's tough.
Yeah. We repeat what we're familiar with. And if you're familiar with chaos, I see it over and over and over with the people I interview, that's what they grew up with. And the people that reach out to me with private messages, that's all they've known. It's tough to break out of that.
Oh, it's so hard. I mean, you get addicted to not just pain, but you get addicted to like struggle and uncertainty. And, I can remember sitting there with, $500,000 house and in-ground pool. My backyard was like a resort, and, my truck's $80,000 truck, and, you know, really good job paying well into the six figures and all this stuff, and being like, what if I blow all this up? What if I start from scratch? I wonder if I could do it. Right.
Right.
Like I want to experience that pain and that struggle again. I wonder if I could start from scratch. Like,
That'll be a good challenge.
yeah, like let's get my house repossessed. Let's get my truck repossessed, and it's and that's, dude, sometimes that's just where I'm at. I'm just like, this normal life and successful, it bores me. But you want it, right?
Right.
And even that mentality, I'm getting much better at, being like, nah, fuck that. Like, you worked hard for the things you have. Enjoy it. You earn it. But that's not how I thought 3 years ago or even 2 years ago. This is all new to me.
Right.
And I'm working my ass off to maintain that level of like self-confidence and, self-worth. And again, I'm being surrounded with the network of guys that I have now is paramount to that. And I'm very grateful.
Yeah. I mean, I always harp on, your 5 core people that are surround you. You gotta guard carefully. Do you have naysayers? Do you have toxic people? Do you have people that just like gossip all the time? Or do you got people that are growing, building, achieving, inspiring, and that's gonna push you forward? And that's who you got around you now.
Oh, absolutely. It's funny, man. I went through every comment on the soft white underbelly thing, and I think out of 1,900 comments, 1,800 comments, whatever it was, I think there were 3 negative comments.
Yeah.
And one of them was my ex-wife's friend that I know.
Really?
You know what I mean? So like, who gives a shit what people think?
Yeah.
And after seeing that comment, man, what I learned is the people that saw you at your worst, they want you to stay there.
Yeah.
They don't want to see you out there doing good things and helping people and want to believe that you're better, it can change. They want to see you as, that
A
guy.
piece of shit.
Yeah. That's what they want to know you as. And so, man, it was actually awesome to read that comment and
To see her comment.
it was great.
Great.
Because 3 years have gone by, and
she's still better. Her friend's still better.
Yeah, right. Cares enough to leave a comment. But my point is just, the people that are going to be doing the talking about you aren't people doing better than you, right? They're the people that knew you one way, are pissed that you're now this way, and they're trailing behind, and they're going to stay there.
Do you still drink?
Occasionally.
Right.
I don't get drunk. But yeah, alcohol for me it's a little bit of a social lubricant from time to time. But I'm so busy all the time. I like being on.
Yeah.
So being hungover is a non-negotiable for me.
Yeah, and you mentioned exercise every day. You can't do that when you're hungover.
Yeah, I work out 6 days a week.
Yeah.
I usually take Sunday off. Sometimes I don't. Sometimes I'll go weeks straight. It's what I love. It keeps me sane.
Yeah, we touched on like your positive habits you have every day.
Yeah.
What about life lessons in this journey, or what have you learned, or what do you want to leave the audience with?
When you're feeling sorry for yourself, it's easy to kind of fall into that trap of poor me, and I don't judge people that kind of go down that road because it's easy to do. But something that's always helped me is just saying somebody else has to have it worse. They're going through something harder. They've gotten over it, and they've come back stronger, and they're doing more with less. There's always somebody who's been through a harder life than you who's, now running a company or something, right? So I'm not a fan of excuses, but at the same time, I'm empathetic to when people can't really pull themselves out. But, my hope is that people can kind of see stories like mine, stories like yours, and understand that they're not alone, and that they can overcome and do good things, because we're all capable of it. We all have, a kindness inside of us that is there and that is willing to do and able to do good things.
Awesome. Yeah, it's been a hell of a journey, man. You know, a couple things that went different early on, you know, like could have totally changed your life. You know, that lady,
Yeah.
that first lady who was a saint in you know, the child care service. Man, if you had gotten a household where you're getting sexually abused every night, you're just off to the races in a totally different direction, man.
And that's exactly why I take the position of just gratitude
Yeah,
and just being incredibly grateful for what I did experience, because it could have been worse.
yeah.
Um, it was tough. There were so many tough times, but it could have been a lot worse.
Yeah, I'm not saying it was easy at
Yeah.
all, you know,
Yeah.
but man, you had a, you know, you're like you're teeter-tottering, and just one pebble more on that other side could have derailed you, and lucky it
It
didn't happen.
absolutely, and something that I've thought of before is I could have gotten into drugs. I've never even tried a drug.
Wow,
I
that's
could,
amazing.
yeah, I could have gotten into drugs. I could have, gotten into, gangs and just the wrong lifestyles and things like that. And people would have been like, yeah, well, look how we grew up. It's not surprising.
Right. They
It,
would have gave you the out.
exactly.
Yeah.
Instead, it's like, oh, wow. And that's what I want people to see. This is how you can grow up. This is what you can go through, and this is what you can do. And again, everybody's capable of it. And it does take a little bit of a support system. And that's kind of what I want to be for people. I want them to see what I'm doing, what you're doing, what Seth's doing. And I want them to be, it's corny, but maybe inspired,
Yeah, absolutely.
you know?
Yeah. So get a support system of you
Yeah.
know, guard those close people.
Yeah. Yeah.
Positive habits every day, exercise, eat good. Um, and speak out, and
Yeah.
don't hold secrets in, because you really get to the next level of healing and growth when you help somebody else.
1,000%.
Yeah.
I've said it so many times. I put up a post recently on YouTube, Instagram, whatever, everything, and just said like this, none of what I do is monetary. I don't make shit. I make money to speak, but other than that, like the leadership stuff I do because I love it. It helps people. When I um the podcast, I do that. That's to help people. When I come on podcasts and share, that's to help people. That's my primary objective. I'll sell software forever and make a living. That's fine. Everything else is just feeding my soul and designed to help other people.
Awesome. So if people want to find your podcast, it's Be the Standard on YouTube.
Yep.
You're on
Yeah,
Spotify and
Utah, yeah.
iTunes, all that.
Yep. Yeah. Be the Standard, YouTube and Spotify. You can find me on Instagram as well. Be the Standard Podcast. LinkedIn, Be the Standard Podcast. And then, my name is Denny Giamazzo. You can find me on Instagram and LinkedIn as well. And X. I don't really go on there much, but yeah, I'm on there.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Awesome, bro. Thanks for being here. It's a great story.
Thanks, brother.
Great comeback.
Yeah, I appreciate you having me.
All right.
This is a great talk. Thank you.
Peace. There you have it, everybody. Wow. Man, just so many of us get a rough start to life, and we can either be that victim through the whole rest of our life and take it to the grave at an early death, or we can rise above and help the next person rise above. And Denny's risen above that. So peace to him, and we'll see you next week.